Welcome into KSL Sports Rewind, our weekly video presented by Heidemann and Associates. And just a reminder, if you have any legal needs, the experts at Heidemann Associates can take care of you. They are a full-service law firm, a flat-fee service as well. And look, they're also sports fans, so they'll even talk to you about your favorite high school team or favorite players in the state. But check them out online at utah.law to find out their law offices nearest you and if they've got service that can help you. Again, that website is utah.law. All right, Jeff, week 5 in the books. We're halfway through. We've got a series. Again, we're bringing back our 4 downs. We got 4 questions. We may have an extra point in there as well. But, Jeff, let's dive into our first question, shall we?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right. So, look, there's a lot of great running backs in the state this year. Siaki Fekitoa for Bountiful. He did play last week, but he's been nursing a bit of an injury. So we're going to ask a running back question to start. And with Fekitoa's injury, we're going to really target this. Which running back has been more impressive to you, Robert Young or Devon Ika out of Lehigh?
Man, you really can't go wrong with either one of those two. I think what Robert Young has done at Roy is pretty incredible. I mean, he's been – there's so many weapons on that Roy offense, but he's been the most potent, I think, on that Roy offense. He's been productive in every game. I love Devon Eka. I love him so much. I think he is I think he's a college running back. I like that he has done it this year, I think with expectations. And to me, that's tough. That added pressure that you're going to be the guy. And at this point, after his breakout season last year, I think everybody in the state knew who Devon Eka was and knew that this Lehigh offense, they've got a lot of weapons too, but they knew that Devon Eka was going to be a huge part of what they did. And for him to continue to produce the way that he has this year, I think he's gone for more than 100 in every game. He does things out of the backfield. He's a spectacular blocker as well in pass protection for Jet New. Devon Eka does it all, and he does it all with that mantle of expectations on his shoulders each and every week. For me, I give him just the slight edge, but you could talk me into Robert Young pretty quickly because he has been phenomenal for Roy.
You know, it's really interesting, and you make a great case for Devon Eka. I'm going to make a case here for Robert Young, and let me just throw some numbers at you if that's okay. So first of all, let's talk about the games that Robert Young has had. He's had 5 games midway point through the year. In his first game, he had a 90-yard receiving touchdown. Okay, that's not bad. Game 2, 3 touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and a kick return touchdown. Game 3, he had 5 touchdowns, 4 rushing, 1 passing, not receiving, passing. In Game 4, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, and in Game 5, he had 3 touchdowns again, 2 rushing and 1 receiving. And here's the other thing that's crazy about Robert Young. According to Stats Reported, you want to guess? Actually, let's play a little over under, shall we?
Okay.
Over or under 8 yards a carry for Robert Young.
I think last I saw, I actually looked this up, and I know he was at 7, but then he had a monster game. I think he's over 8 now.
So according to the stats I saw, and I checked over the weekend, over 13 yards per carry.
Oh
13. That's like Jalen Warren style. Let's go over under again. 12 yards per catch, over or under.
You have a 90-yard catch. That's going to help. I'm going to go over.
Yep.
Yeah.
17 yards per catch. And by the way, he plays special teams as well, and he's got some passing touchdowns. I think Robert Young has been phenomenal this year. Now, I love the case you made about Ika because Jet New and Drew Gardner are very different players, right? Jet New going to Oklahoma State. Congratulations on the commitment. If Devon Ika had a more pronounced role where he had more feature, you would see greater numbers. I don't know if they'd be at Robert Young's status, but Young has had a fantastic year. He and Gardner have been dynamic for that Roy offense, and Young is a guy who has truly done it all. Special teams, offense, can throw it, catch it. I mean, he's like Peter Pan back there. He can even crow. So Robert Young, he's my guy. Notice we did not ask the question, the best running back in the state, McCord Christy Hansen, but those two have been spectacular for their respective teams.
Yeah, there's no question about it. There is no wrong answer. Both of them highly productive. Both of them are going to have really, really huge critical roles, especially in the case of Robert Young, critical roles as their teams play in the second half of the season and gear up for the playoffs. There is no wrong answer with Young or with Eka. There's no question.
Notice we kind of hit something in there, McCord Christiansen. We'll talk about the Mack truck here on a future show in Crimson Cliffs. It looks like they're running again.
They figured some things out, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Let's move on to question number 2, Jeff. This week, look, we had a statement win for Northridge. It doesn't get any easier for the top-ranked Knights, by the way. Go check out our RPI video. We'll dive into that. Northridge going to take on the Bountiful Redhawks. Jeff, who is this game bigger for, Northridge or Bountiful?
You know, for Bountiful, they dropped that game in overtime to Viewmont, and they kind of scuffled, right? And they haven't dominated so far this year. They've been good. They've picked up wins. They've had gritty wins. They got back on the right track. Fekitoa's been hurt. There's lots of reasons that Bountiful hasn't been maybe as dominant as we thought they would be coming into the season. They've got to have a win here against Northridge. They've got to pick up that momentum. This was about the time last year that there was that Roy game that really kind of turned things around. They lost that game, but this was about the time that they had to start to figure some things out in order to go on that playoff run that they went on. So this is a big game for Bountiful. There's no question about it. It's bigger for Northridge because if Northridge wins, all of a sudden Northridge, you take them really seriously. That win against Viewmont, that was huge. That was a big win. Viewmont and Northridge are kind of two peas in a pod this year, that they're two teams that maybe nobody saw coming, that they're both having great seasons. It's always good to pick up wins like that. But Bountiful's that big dog that everybody saw coming long time ago. Months ago, we knew Bountiful would be a player. If Northridge can beat Bountiful, all of a sudden everybody's taking Northridge very, very, very seriously. To me, I think this is a bigger opportunity for Northridge, but that doesn't minimize how important this game is for Bountiful.
Look, it's a really interesting game because, I mean, you think about a Bountiful team that made it to a semifinal last year. You think about a Northridge team that hasn't had a winning season. I don't even know how long, Jeff. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And, when you look at this Northridge team, the thing that stood out to me, their defense. We talk about Chase Harris. We talk about Frescus. Or even Nye, who's been great for them under center or behind center this year. But that defense has flown around for the Knights. They've got 9 interceptions defensively. Arocha has 3 of them. They had a pick 6 in that win over Viewmont. They only allowed 1 touchdown to Viewmont, 1 offensive touchdown to Viewmont. The other points came off of a special teams play. This Northridge D has been spectacular. And when you look at Bountiful, you look at their schedule this year and you think that's a really good schedule. Harriman, Farmington, both of those teams, I think their records have not been as impressive as what I expected. I thought that they'd have some better records for both of those 2 programs through the midpoint of the year. That doesn't mean they won't be competitive and better as the year goes on. I think they're getting stronger. New coaching staff at Harriman. Farmington had to replace so many guys. Those teams are getting better. I thought those wins would have had a little more meat to them, right? I thought they'd mean a little bit more because those teams would have more success. Olympus, a game they won by 3. But even Olympus, they beat Brighton this week. Heck of a win for Olympus. That defense was flying around. But Olympus has not had a great start to the year either. You could argue this might be the toughest game on Bountiful's schedule. They have 1 more against Roy, and that's it. For me, it's kind of like, does this Bountiful team, do they really believe? You look at all the returners they had in Fekitoa. I don't feel like his numbers have been where I would have expected them to. I know he's had some injuries and there's been some challenges there. But even Geilman, 53% completion percentage, I would have expected that to be a little bit higher. It just feels like Bountiful hasn't found their stride yet. And in this region, you won't have a lot of those opportunities, and we know how tough 5A is going to be. I think Bountiful's got to go, and they've got to prove to themselves, show to themselves, guys, we are good. We still return a ton of talent from that team that made it to a state championship last year. I think this is a huge game for Bountiful, just to prove to themselves that they are what we thought they would be.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? I mean, this is a game for Bountiful to prove that they can live up to those expectations. And this is a game for Northridge to say, hey, we're throwing all of your expectations away. We are for real. It's a big game. It's one of the most exciting games in the state on Friday night. There's no question about it.
Jeff, look, I mean, we don't call you coach, but we could. I mean, you're that knowledgeable. If you're Northridge, are you playing into the, hey guys, we got nothing to lose in this one, no one expects it, or given that they're number one, do you feel like there's added pressure for that night squad this week?
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, forget the rankings. Number one, midseason, that doesn't mean anything. Right now, everybody still thinks Bountiful is the top dog up here in the North, right? Everybody still thinks Bountiful's the team to beat. And it's like you say, Dane, Bountiful doesn't seem like they've played their best ball yet. And so if I'm a Northridge coach today and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, that's fine. Bountiful can figure it out. They're not going to play their best ball against us. We're going to keep them so far out of sorts. I'm not worried too much about the rankings because rankings are what they are. But I'm definitely saying, hey, look, this is, forget the rankings, forget whatever hype you have, forget Viewmont last week. This team's good enough to beat you. You better come in and make sure that you play, that this game comes out in our style, Northridge style. We're not going to let Bountiful dictate the tone. That's probably the message I go.
Going to be a fascinating game. Remember, Bountiful had 2-possession lead over Viewmont. Couldn't put that one away. Can they take care of business this week? It'd be really interesting to see. All right, let's move to our third down question, Jeff. What are you thinking about Region 1? This region's been wide open. How do you see this region at the midpoint of the year?
Well, first and foremost, Region 1 is near and dear to my heart. Back in the old days, it's a long time ago. I was once a member of Region 1. Clearfield was there with all of these guys. It's a little different now. It looks different, but Region 1 is still home to me. So I look at these schools and I see it is pretty wide open. I know the history of what happens in Region 1. And no matter who the dominant team is, right? Everybody had Syracuse penciled in last year after their hot start. And here came Davis out of nowhere. Only Patrick Carr knew Davis was coming. And Davis came. There's been games where it's, or years where it's Weber that, you think Weber's going to eventually fade away, and they just don't. They always are right there. Syracuse looks like they've figured some things out. Big win. Gross football, right? 9-7. That's not anything anybody's going to write home about, but that's a huge statement win over a Bingham program. Huge. That's big. And then, of course, there's Davis, and Davis looks like a juggernaut. I mean, this could go anywhere. It's really hard for me to pick against Davis, but I know what history has said. There's going to be some upsets. Can Davis play this clean consistently? The last couple of weeks, I think they've had 120 some odd points in the last 2 weeks. They haven't played the best teams in the state during these last 2 weeks, but they've pitched shutouts on defense, and they've gone crazy on offense. Does that create kind of a sense of maybe overconfidence? Do you get used to that? And then all of a sudden you're going to play some of these region teams who know who you are. They know the coaching staff. They know your tendencies, and maybe you get punched in the mouth. I think Davis is the team to beat, but that means everybody's going to give Davis their best. And if Davis takes the foot off the gas at all, some of these other teams, these Syracuse and Weber particularly, I think those teams have the talent and the coaches that they can pull off some upsets and make this close. Forget everything that's happened in the non-region play. Region 1's going to be tight. Davis, for me, is the front runner, but it's going to be tight.
The tricky thing about Davis, usually darts are thrown at a target. Well, Davis is not only the darts, but they are also the target. You think about what they did last year, running the table in Region 1 like they did. And look, I mean, this was not a runaway type scenario. It was a 1-point win over Farmington. I think it was like a 10-point win over Layton. I mean, there were some competitive games in that region last year. They played Weber in the playoffs. That was a one-possession game. These schools gave them battle, even though I think it became apparent as the year went on, Davis was the best team in that region, and yet there were half of their region games were right there. And when you look at the start of Region 1 this year, I think Farmington found something. Layton is 4-1. Layton is in the top 5 in 6A in the RPI, folks. I mean, you look at what has happened to start. Weber has been playing really well. Fremont looks improved. You talk about Syracuse, that defense. This is not going to be an easy region. And when you talk about Davis and their non-region, Week 1 against Lehigh does not go as planned. The most challenging game they've had since that point, according to the RPI, is Copper Hills. Because Copper Hills is slotted above Mountain Ridge. And so, to your point, I don't know that it's been a group that has been super tested in their non-region outside of that Lehigh game, which got sideways for Davis. I think they've got to focus, got to battle against complacency. I wonder if they'll be able to run the table again this year, because I do think Region 1 is so difficult. The defensive play, it feels like we've had Layton. We've seen Layton be extremely battle-tested in the early part of the year, come from behind a couple times to pull off wins. Weber's been stout, physical. Fremont, their offense is finding pace. I think this Region 1 is super deep at the top. I'll say I don't think a team goes undefeated in Region 1.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I do. I think this is going to be a closer race. I think everybody in Kaysville right now is probably feeling pretty good. And how could you not with the start of the season that they've had? But you mentioned it. I think there's a lot of teams that are starting to figure some things out. Fremont, Celeste Moa, and Manasseh Tuatagaloa, they've started to click. That was a lot of new coaching staff, new players, new transfers. They've started to gel a little bit, and they've got a ton of talent. Weber's getting a huge jolt at some point in the next couple of weeks when Catch Carne comes back to the lineup. Carter Payne's been phenomenal, but they're going to turn it over to a guy with a ton of experience who did a lot of good things last year at the quarterback spot. That's going to give them a mental boost. And who knows what to expect from Syracuse and Farmington, both with big wins. For Syracuse to beat Bingham, Region 1, I told you, I'm a Region 1 guy. Region 1 doesn't beat Bingham very often. That's a big mental win for everybody in Region 1, but especially that Syracuse program. There's a ton of talent in this region. There's a ton of quarterback talent in this region. It's going to be a dogfight, and what defense can step up and make the most plays. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm with you. I don't know that anybody runs the table. I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than maybe some people think it will be.
And I'll just add one more thing to that. You talk about that Syracuse win, how big that's a first-year head coach, was an assistant in the program. There's a lot of familiarity there, but when you get that kind of a win, all of a sudden your kids are bought in, right? Guys, this does work. And it's amazing. It doesn't take much of those kinds of scenarios to all of a sudden see a program just absolutely take off. And I think Syracuse's position, they're young, but man, if you get buy-in, that's one to keep an eye on. And I love you talking about Fremont. There's a ton of talent for the Silver Wolves and the first-year head coach, and that's one you got to keep an eye on too. Davis will play Weber this week. We'll have more on that one later. They may not get Catch Carney this week, but watch out, because it's not uncommon to see rematches, especially region rematches in the playoffs. Weber may get them for the second time 2 years in a row. Still a lot of work to be done to see whether that will be the case or not. But let's move on to our fourth down question. This one is a tough one, Jeff. Who is stopping Ridgeline in 4A? The Riverhawks with a dominant win over Green Canyon this last week. I think most people, including myself, thought Green Canyon maybe the second best team in 4A. Who is stopping Ridgeline in 4A, if anyone?
Man, the answer I thought would be Green Canyon. That defense, the way that they play up there at Green Canyon, that's a really tough defense. The Wolves, they play 11-man football. They are assignment sound. They don't make mistakes. And Ridgeline, I think it was 39. And they scored and just continued to score. And every time that Green Canyon thought they were making a comeback and making it close, Nate Dolly and that Ridgeline offense just had more weapons to go to. Crew Jones, they've got Graham Livingston. I think he went for over 200 yards against Green Canyon, and then picked up an offer from Utah State to celebrate. They've got a ton of talent on that Ridgeline team. I don't know that anybody stops them. I thought it would be Green Canyon. Skyview started to maybe figure a few things out, so maybe they're right there. I think the biggest threat is down south, and Crimson did not get off to the start of the season that they wanted, but they have the talent and they have the experience. They have the coaching staff. Alafipo is fantastic. You talked about Christiansen. They've got McKay Wright on defense. They've got a ton of talent down there in Crimson. It's starting to come together a little bit down there, and I think if they continue to improve, took a little bit longer than they wanted to. Let's not deny that. Yep, but if they continue to improve, Crimson is going to be the team that nobody wants to play in the playoffs, because they've got so much experience. They've been there before. They've got confidence. They feel like they have underperformed this season, and now they're just doing what they expected to do. They're not surprised. They're not hanging their heads. They know what they're capable of. And so I think from a mental standpoint, Crimson is the team that thinks they can beat Ridgeline. I think everybody else, you got to prove that you can do it before you start to believe. Crimson believes. And they got the talent to do it. That's probably the best bet, but man, Ridgeline looks really good.
They do look really good. And for me, this is a statement kind of win when you talk about how big that was this week for Ridgeline. I'm going to give you two teams that I'm just going to say, just keep this in the back of your mind. I figured you might go with Crimson, so I took that off of my list. I was not gonna go there. Let me give you two.
You're going to say Morgan, aren't you?
No. But look, we know 4A is owned by Morgan, right? We know that.
I know.
We know.
They are.
I'm going to give you two. The first one they already played, and that is Stansbury. I think you got to watch out for Stansbury. This is there's a mentality in Stansbury where we don't care who we're playing. We're going to come and we're going to knock you in the mouth. And it's going to be physical and it's going to be tough. Stansbury does not get mowed over very often. They played already this year. That was a 28-20 game. Ridgeline got the win. Congratulations to the Riverhawks. They deserved it. But Stansbury, if they see him a second time, I feel like that defense, here's a familiar name, Bronx Baker, the younger brother of Easton. This guy, as a freshman, he looked like he was a senior. This guy runs around and causes all sorts of havoc for that Stansbury defense. I think their physicality might be able to disrupt Ridgeline, especially if you get this in a November game in a Rice-Eccles Stadium. And their ground game with Ferry and Dearden, this is a team I think you got to be really careful when you think about 4A in the playoffs. Let me give you a second one. And this is one, Jeff, that not on a lot of people's radar, and it needs to be. And I'm going down south too, but not quite as south as you. The Spanish Fork Dons. Yes, the Dons of Spanish Fork. McKay Smith, check this out. 71% completion percentage for McKay Smith. He's thrown for almost 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jeff has not turned the ball over. Their lone loss came against Maple Mountain, who's also undefeated, and they lost that game 35-27. I think Spanish Fork, they play in Region 8. It's kind of the forgotten region in 4A. I think they're good enough to be able to keep pace offensively. And remember, they got a big boy up front in Aaron Dunn. That O-line can give Smith protection. I think Spanish Fork is a really interesting team in 4A that nobody's talking about because we still think of them in 5A. They're not. They're 4A. Yeah. Spanish Fork, Stansbury, two teams for me that I'm like, look out. I think that I don't know if Spanish Fork can deal with the physicality, but, man, their offense can score. And those are two that I think could have something for Ridgeline.
You know, interesting, Dane. We didn't say Park City. And Park City, they've looked good to start the season. They've started to figure some things out as well. Park City's always a team that sort of surprises everybody, it feels like, in the playoffs. No matter what the expectations are, no matter how their regular season went, they sort of play really well in the playoffs. Park City's another team that maybe we need to keep our eye on. I like the Spanish Fork poll. I think Spanish Fork can do it. I'm not sure that I'm sold on Stansbury, but I think that Bronx Baker's the real deal. They've got the physicality, but Spanish Fork, that's a good poll. That offense, they put up a lot of points.
They put up a lot of points. Bash Bodley for Park City. Look, he shares this video with me every week. He is truly multifaceted. He can run the ball, throws it very well as well, averaging 7 yards a carry. He's got 8 touchdowns on the year. And Ethan Cunningham, that Park City team is very talented. Let's move to our extra point, shall we? We've got a plethora of great games this week. Which week 6 game are you most excited about? We've got Davis at Weaver. We talked about that one already. AF at Lehigh. East at Olympus. Titans coming off that big win. Provo at Timpanogos. Snow Canyon taking on your Crimson Cliff Mustangs. And Park City Stansbury may be the battle for that region.
A lot of good games, a lot of reasons to be excited. East and Olympus is going to be a ton of fun. A really confident Olympus team, an East team looking to bounce back. I can't leave Region 1. I can't leave Region 1 because of a couple of reasons. One, Weber, my favorite place to take in a game in the entire state of Utah. Up there on the hill with Ben Lomond looking down on you. You're looking over the whole valley. It's great. Weber's great. That environment, that community, they get up for Weber football. That is one of the most exciting games to just be a fan and to take in the student section. It's cool. And if you haven't been to a game up at Weber, it's a lot of cool. Davis traveling to Weber. They're going into a hostile environment. That's going to be crazy. And we haven't seen Davis really be tested yet. So for me, that's the game that I'm most excited about. Is it a homer pick because it's Region 1? Probably. But I'm going to own it. And that Region 1 game, I can't wait. I'm super excited to see that game.
That's a great one. It's a great rivalry. Region 1 football, I know down in the Valley, a lot of people are like, oh, it's Region 1. Region 1 football is super fun. Like, because you get to these region games and the environments there, you don't get environments like that in Salt Lake Valley. You just don't.
You don't.
Not meaning to knock, but Region 1, there's just something different. It's still community up there. It means so much. That's a great pick. Let me give you the one for me that is super interesting. AF at Lehigh. This has been a series that's been dominated by the Cavemen. When you look at the history in this one, the record, this blew me away. AF owns this history. If you go back to 1950, AF owns this history. The record is 39-9-3 for AF. 39-9-3. That's how one-sided this series has been. Lehigh has not won in this series since 2013.
Wow.
Crazy when you think about that. And you think of this Lehigh team with Jet and you and Ika, and then you look at AF, which we've seen, the problem is not offense. The problem is not offense for AF, right? They can score with the best of them. This game is going to be super high scoring. And when you look at a series that's been so dominated, and you look at where things are at right now in Region 3, this is a really pivotal game for Lehigh, because you think about, with Lone Peak losing, now I know that's a non-region loss, but you're going to have Lone Peak, Lehigh, Skyridge, AF, like they're all going to play each other, and it's not going to take long for you lose to one of those teams, and now all of a sudden you're chasing immediately. So I feel like these two teams are both going to be super urgent, super critical region opener. And honestly, you have one of the highest scoring offenses in that region going up against the best defense statistically in that region. And then remember, this is Coach Ed Larson's last year. So there's a lot there that Lehigh's playing for. AF has owned this series historically. I think this is going to be a super fun ball game. I think it's going to be cream of the crop in Region 3.
Ton of offense in that game. The player that I think could make the biggest difference and make a ton of noise in this game, not an offensive player. PJ Taki for Lehigh. He is a menace as a pass rusher. And we saw from that AF offense, if they had a weak spot, because they can hang points, they can score with anybody, they have had some struggles protecting the quarterback, and that has disrupted their offense. PJ Taki is one of the best pass rushers in the state of Utah. This is a game I'm sure he's got circled as a game that he can go in and make a huge impact. In a game that's, I agree with you, they're going to score 30, 40 points on both sides. PJ Taki could be a difference maker in that one.
That's a good call. And it is one where I think with how good Lehigh's defense is, generally in these kind of matchups, it's the defense that comes out on top, right? Or at least I feel like that's the case. So, look, I think Lehigh, they've got a great opportunity here. I think they're structured to do it. But you could have said that in years past, and they haven't been able to get over that hurdle, too. And sometimes it's like, does it become a mind game? We'll find out. True. We'll find out. This one was a one-sided win last year for American Fork. So we'll see. I think it's a great game. See if Coach Ed Larson can get the job done for his Lehigh Pioneers, Jet and U, and Devon Aka, amongst others. Oh, Jeff, good show this week, eh? Anything you want to hit before we sign off for the week?
Just my weekly plea: get out there, go to a game, support it. You won't regret it. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody, Dane, that went to a high school football game on Friday night and thought, man, I really wish I didn't go. I've never heard that in my life. So get out, go support. And if you can't, check us out on the Red Zone, but go support these kids.
That's right.
Get involved. It's a ton of fun. It's the most fun that we have in Utah that somehow still seems to fly under the radar. High school football is a blast.
You better hurry, too, because that weather's starting to get a little bit iffy, and there's a lot of great games coming up this week you'll want to check out. I want to throw this in there because we lightly mentioned it, but man, if you want to know how big this win was, just go look at the RPIs. We'll have a video coming out on the RPI breakdown as well. Go check that out on KSLSports.com. Olympus shutting out Brighton. We didn't talk about that here very much today at all, but man, you want to know how big that win was for Olympus? Been a tough start of the year in terms of the record for the Titans, but to shut out the Brighton Bengals, who I think most people had as like a top 2, top 3 team, Brighton dropped to what, 7, 8 in this week's RPI? Huge win for Olympus, and certainly causing some problems inside of the region standings. That region going to be super interesting to see how that plays out. But Brighton shut out for the first time in a long time. It's been a long time since Brighton has not scored a point in a football game. You've got to go back many, many years to find that. I'm just doing a quick search, Jeff. I'm back to early 20-teens. I still haven't seen it. So props to that Olympus D. Here you go, 2011 against Alta. Last time Brighton was shut out.
Yeah, that was an impressive win. Olympus really flexing their versatility that they nearly beat West the week before. They got into a shootout. It was 40-38. And then to turn around 7 days later and say, hey, we can win ugly too. We can win a 13-0 type of a game. That's a versatile Olympus team. That's impressive that they can do that from week to week. That says a lot about who they are.
Probably the statement of the week made by Olympus this week. Who's going to make our statement this week? We'll find out on Friday night. Get out to your nearest high school. Great games all across the state. And as Jeff mentioned, if you can't, join us on the Red Zone Friday night live on KSLSports.com, where Jeff and I will take you all across the state, bring you into the latest and biggest games, but you can only find it on KSLSports.com. For Vince Francis, Jeff Hansen, my name is Dane Stewart. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on KSL Sports Rewind.